Welcome, witches, wizards, and muggles alike, to another enchanting episode of Magical Tales from the Slytherin Common Room, bringing your favorite Harry Potter fanfiction to audio format. So sit back, relax, and lock your headphones and let the magic begin.
Apostasy by Deydralinne, Chapter 42. A Deal with Death. "I'm sorry, what?" Daphne exclaimed. The healers in the room all froze and looked at her in horror at what they were hearing. "Focus, people." Hermione snapped their way, and they all startled and returned to the job of constantly keeping Astoria doused on blood-replenishing potions, healing her internal organs as much as possible, and generally keeping her alive. "I'm not saying you have to die and stay dead, just long enough that I can do a completion ritual. Just long enough that I can do a completion ritual, and then we can bring you back. You can't resurrect the dead." One healer snapped, her face pulled into a serious scowl. "Wrong. Muggles do it all the time," Hermione argued with a raised eyebrow. Again, everyone stopped and looked at her as if she had gone crazy. "It's true. They can lower your temperature to the point of—" "Sorry, but no, her blood would—" The same witch who clearly had a problem with Hermione interrupted. Hermione didn't even look her way as she cast a silencing charm on the woman. Ginny scoffed, but Daphne was looking a little pale. "Point of death, but we would have to warm you back up again. I was thinking, if you're willing, that is." Daphne laughed, bordering hysterical. "Willing to die?" Hermione held up her hand to wait until she was finished. "That we would just go hard and fast. Stop your heart. I can do the ritual real quick, and one of these fine people could bring you back again." Daphne looked at the healers, and one of the healers chewed her lip for a second but nodded. The man opposite her stared at her in shock. "Livia." The healer, Livia, gave him a pointed look. "Oh, what? We could do it. We have spent the last 2 weeks keeping this girl alive to give Granger some time to find a solution. Technically," Livia looked from Astoria to Daphne. I could do it. If I used a strong static jinx to stop your heart, and then I could do it again to restart your heart. But the window would be small." Livia looked at Hermione, seemingly decided that she was settled on doing this. "You would have 5 minutes, at the absolute maximum, before I could have to shock her again to bring her back. And it would hurt. A lot. It obviously comes with risks, and even with magic, assuming it all goes perfectly, she's still looking at 4 to 6 weeks recovery time." Livia trailed off, trying not to cower under the mutinous glares being sent her way. Daphne stared at the healer with an open mouth and wide eyes that flickered to her little sister. "But you could do it. You could bring me back." Livia nodded. Daphne turned to Hermione with a new sense of determination. "Explain. How is me dying going to save Astoria?" "Well, that alone wouldn't." Hermione shifted nervously. We would need to do the same for Astoria." "What?" Daphne exclaimed, any confidence she had in Hermione's plan fading. "She's nowhere near stable enough for that." Hermione rubbed her temples, still feeling a little dizzy from her internal trip. "I don't know what else to tell you, Daph. This is our only option. I've combed through everything available to me. It all comes back to this curse ending when every green grass is dead. It's just you two. If you both die, I can perform the ritual. It is risky, I know, and I still might not be enough to save her, but without it, she's definitely going to die. But, and this is a huge but, there is a chance if this works, she will be alive, and if that's the case, then she will be free from the curse." Daphne began pacing the small amount of space in the room, one hand leaving her pocket to cover her mouth. Livia cleared her throat. "If we are also looking at doing this to Miss Knott, I would say you have 3 minutes, and you should be aware that the risks are higher with Astoria. As you've said, she is not exactly stable." Daphne looked at her pale, unconscious sister and sighed sadly. "Okay, let's do it. What do you need?" Hermione nodded and turned to Ginny. "I need Theo. More specifically, I need a vial of his blood." "Well, that shouldn't be hard. He caused a huge scene last night. He isn't very happy with you right now for keeping him out of the room," Ginny mumbled. Hermione shook her head. "I don't care." She turned to the healer, Livia. "I'll need healers who are willing to help you and get on board. Everyone else can fuck off. We will need a second bed in here for Miss Greengrass," Livia added. One healer standing near Astoria's head nodded in agreement, while the man who had objected shook his head in disapproval. The witch Hermione had silenced was screaming something at them, but Hermione had no interest in listening to it. "Daphne, please. Given that you're about to kill me and all." Daphne tried for a smile, but it came out a little shaky. "I need to see Pansy," Daphne mumbled, removing her suit jacket and placing it delicately over the back of the discarded chair. Everyone seemed to move at once. Several healers stormed from the room, but some stayed. Livia sent a message off on her metacard. Daphne slipped from the room, probably to find Pansy, while Ginny crouched in front of Hermione. "Are you sure about this?" Ginny whispered when the chaos had settled a little. "No, but I have to try. Otherwise, she's dead anyway," Hermione answered in a hushed tone. The truth was, this was going to be a huge risk for Astoria, Daphne, and for herself. Death didn't look favorably upon being tricked, and it could backfire and attack her instead. Ginny sighed. "I'll go stab Theo," she mumbled, and withdrew from the room, leaving her with just Astoria, Livia, and 2 other healers. Hermione looked at Livia, studying her kind features. She had remained untouched by the war, but she spoke English with an underlying French accent, which suggested that she was from the United Kingdom. "Thank you," Hermione said. The healer nodded, swallowing nervously. "Hufflepuff," she shrugged. "It's in my nature." Hermione smiled. "Yeah, well, I was a Gryffindor, so we can just blame it on our dispositions then." The door opened and another bed was rolled in and pushed into a space beside Astoria. A pair of skeptical-looking healers entered, and though they tried to hide their lack of confidence, Hermione felt it. The entire room had a distinct feel of nervous energy. Outside the room, there was a lot of yelling going on. Some of it sounded like Pansy, some of it sounded like Draco, and a lot of it sounded like guards. But she blocked it all out and stood on shaky legs to cross the room to Astoria. Hermione's hand stroked back a strand of her hair. The witch was so pale and cold that Hermione had to double-check that she was still alive. "I really need you to fight Astoria, okay? Because if this doesn't work, I don't think Theo will ever forgive me for not letting him say goodbye." Hermione mumbled. Her stomach was in knots. "There's so little time to get this right. 3 minutes," Hermione confirmed with Livia. "Yeah, I can bring her back first and then move on to Miss Daphne. I'll stop Daphne's heart first, and then Astoria's to give you as much time as possible. But if it gets too close to the time being up, I can't hold off. I need to start bringing them back," Livia explained. Hermione hummed her agreement. There wasn't a lot of space in the room, but there would be enough room for the circle of ruin she would need to make in order to perform the completion spell. No one said a word while Hermione worked, getting as much prepared as she could, levitating the secrets of the darkest arts out of her handbag and onto the floor in the middle of the circle she had made with her wand. All of the healers shifted uncomfortably. She understood it. Once upon a time, she would have been a witch arguing to stop this from happening. "I'm not bringing in dark magic, just so everyone knows. I'm just closing it off," Hermione explained sympathetically. "I'm not going to lie and say this is going to be smooth sailing. It's really important that no matter what, you do not stop what you're doing. They are your priorities." The door opened again and Ginny slipped back inside, closely followed by Daphne, who closed the door and locked it. "I hope you know what you're doing, Hermione, because Pansy is ready to kill you. And the only thing stopping Theo from busting in this door is a handful of guards and Blaze." "Well then, I suppose we better get a wriggle on it before that happens." Hermione rolled out her shoulders and tried to calm her nerves. Could everyone else hear her heartbeat, or was it just her? It seemed so loud as it pounded against her chest. Was she really going to do this? With next to zero preparation, Merlin help her. Daphne made her way to the new bed and hesitated, slipping off her ring and pocketing it. Hermione could see her hands were shaking and breathing was heavy. Her head turned ever so slightly to look in Hermione's directions. "I would say good luck, but that doesn't seem like enough." "I know," Hermione responded, and with that, Daphne climbed onto the bed and laid down with a nervous exhale. Ginny held out her hand to give Hermione the vial of Theo's blood. There was a surprising amount within, and all Hermione could do was hope that Ginny hadn't literally stabbed him, and that Theo wasn't out there bleeding out and dying as well, because really, 2 of her friends dying momentarily already seemed in excess of what was preferable. "Jen, do the timer." She took a moment to occlude the fear and anxiety about what she was going to do away to the far reaches of her mind. Such humane feelings would do her no good right now. The calm that washed over her restored her confidence as well because she was brilliant. And if anyone could do this, she knew it would be her. A short nod in Livy's direction, and the healer turned to Daphne with a sympathetic look. I'm really sorry, but this is going to hurt. Daphne's eyes blew wide open for a second as her whole body rose up off the bed before she fell back lifeless. Livia, though clearly panicking internally, held her composure and turned to Astoria. Everyone clear. Hermione watched as the shock registered on the diagnostics floating overhead. A second later, Astoria's heart had stopped. Angry red numbers appeared on the wall, counting down 3 minutes. Hermione began activating each rune, which glowed neon green in response, the color of death it seemed. Morte confecta. She chanted, uncorking the vial and tipping it on the floor in the middle of the circle. Though she was not a knot, she knew his blood would suffice. The circle shown in Hermione's world went black. She didn't fall so much as stepped into a different dimension. She was still in the same hospital room, but she was alone, at least physically. In the corner of her eye, she could see a tall, black man dressed in layers of fine black fabric. But if she turned her head toward him, he disappeared. The whole room was washed in a grayscale, dusty and hazy. I know you, witch. His deep tone filled the emptiness and sent shivers down her spine. I know you too, she whispered back, taking in the room around her. Death. Death laughed, hearty and full. You are smart, but I see what you intend to do. You do not plan for me to collect their souls, he said slowly, seriously, and giving no indication of his standing on the matter. Pact the Knot family made with you is complete. There is no living Greengrass as we speak. I have read over it 100 times. There's nothing written about you getting to keep them. The figure moved in the corner of her eye again, circling around to stand in front of her. Her skin turned cold as his breath touched her face. Not everything can be found in books, child. His tone irked her. No, but if you expect a contract to hold up, you need to get it in writing. All Greengrass family members are dead. Therefore, the pact has been completed, Hermione argued. She knew it was risky to be debating an issue with Death himself. History showed he did not like to be cheated, and there was nothing to stop him from keeping her as a punishment. I am aware of the pact. I was there when it was made. No one spoke for a moment, and she was starting to worry that she would run out of time. You have sent many people to me. Do you know how many? Hermione didn't. She never counted, never felt the need to. She had started killing people, and there had been no reason to dwell on the lives she had taken. No, she could hear the smile in his voice, even if she couldn't see it. Would you like to? Hermione shook her head. They do not matter. They were just people, and now they aren't. Another laugh bounced off the walls around her. These sisters are just people. Hermione nodded, looking to the door so that she could watch him in the corner of her eye. His presence wasn't unnerving as she would have expected. As am I. She felt him circling her again. Then why should I let them slip by? I need them. I have a plan for the world, and they need to be there to help me achieve it. They have paid the debt. I have not broken any rules. I do not care for the affairs of men, he drawled in disapproval. This is trickery, and you know it. What if I offered you further payment? Hermione suggested, hopefully. This had to work. It had to. I'm listening, Death encouraged. Hermione couldn't get enough air into her lungs as she slid back into the realm of the living. Her gasps were loud as she collapsed onto the floor. The circle dulled and turned dormant once more. Ginny skidded to her side, eyeing the circle before deciding it was safe to cross. Holy fucking shit balls, Hermione, she muttered, pulling Hermione into a tight embrace. Never do that again. I'll do my best, Hermione panted, tears streaming down her face from the involuntary watering of her eyes. Her lungs burnt, and though she was back, she couldn't shake the chill on her skin. There was nothing left in her. Even the task of sitting upright was too much effort. She let herself fall sideways into Ginny, sliding onto the floor to rest her head on Ginny's lap. Her heavy eyes slid over to the beds of Astoria and Daphne, the final 2 green grasses in their family line. The numbers from the timer showed that she had used up her 3 minutes. Livia was already administering shocks to Astoria's chest, while another healer had moved to work on bringing Daphne back. A breeze filtered through the room as the door caved to the pressures of those trying to get in. Another shock. Again, Livy ordered in urgent demands. Hermione's eyes drifted closed. Sleep would claim her soon. There was a scuffle of people, but amidst the yelling, a sound came that made stillness fall over the room again. It was the sound of 2 heartbeats.